With a great interest, I await my visit to Yugoslavia. I send my greetings and best wishes to the people of Yugoslavia, stated Premier Nehru. Belgrade, the capital of Yugoslavia. How far it is from New Delhi? But distance doesn't mean separation. On the occasion of President Tito's visit to India, two friends easily found the common language to harmonize interests of both countries from political, economical, and cultural point of view. In Yugoslavia, they will endeavor to concretize their collaboration. Nehru and Tito, prime ministers who friendly shake hands in this moment, peoples of India and Yugoslavia who struggle for peace and freedom on different sides of the world, are close to each other. Cordial was the meeting of two friends, two statesmen, two firm fighters for peace. I wanted to visit your beautiful country in order to see what you have done and at the same time to learn something from your rich experience, said Nehru. Flowers, smiles, cheers are addressed to a man and fighter, to a country which follows a policy of peace, policy of active coexistence. Over 200,000 of Belgrade population greeted their guest. Streets were full of flags. Everywhere along streets, cheers, Tito, Nehru were constantly repeated. From the airport, President Nehru went to the old palace, which was his Belgrade residence. In the afternoon, Premier Nehru visited Avala. He gave a wreath for the memory of fighters who lost their lives fighting for freedom and independence of Yugoslavia. Caryatides, which surround the grave of unknown hero, work of the famous Yugoslav sculptor Ivan Meštrović, highly impressed the Indian Prime Minister. Citizens of socialist Yugoslavia gave their full appreciation to the prominent fighter for peace. The capital of Yugoslavia had the honor to promulgate Premier Nehru as its citizen. You couldn't give me better pleasure than you did with this kind gesture, which links me to the citizens of your town. This gesture will always remind me not only to your town, but also to the close friendship of people of India and Yugoslavia, said Premier Nehru, receiving the charter of the honorary citizen from the Lord Mayor of Belgrade, Miloš Minić. Premier Nehru couldn't stay in Yugoslavia as long as he wanted. The time was too short to acquaint the country, to see every effort and every result. But the Premier Nehru wanted to see as much as possible. He visited the Institute for Nuclear Energy, Boris Kidrić, in Vinča. He had opportunity to see that Yugoslavia, as well as India, makes extraordinary effort to utilize the power of atoms for peaceful purposes. Yugoslavia and India are among those countries which will never use nuclear energy to destroy anybody. Weak agricultural country, destroyed and robbed. After the Second World War, Yugoslavia began to change to a modern industrially developed country. Železnik, the big machine industry, was the first factory which was built in the process of industrialization of Yugoslavia. Visit to it was the Premier Nehru's first opportunity for an intermediate contact with workers of Yugoslavia. In the town hall, Nehru met town people. In Železnik, he met workers. At the sports stadium in Belgrade, he met youth. Many people wanted to attend to a short performance with which youth and the army greeted the great statesman and friend Premier Nehru. Children, youth and men from the army competed in this performance. Exercises of children from Novi Sad and exercises of the army which symbolized the role of the People's Army in defending the peaceful life of socialist Yugoslavia were the best numbers. Premier Nehru acquainted leaders of the country and representatives of political, social and cultural life of Belgrade, army commanders, members of the diplomatic corps and others in the reception in White Palace given in honor of prominent guests by President Tito and his wife. Members of folk dance company Kolo showed on that occasion several dances from the rich folklore treasury of Yugoslavia. Mrs. Indira Gandhi, the daughter of Premier Nehru, was interested in some other things. She visited Women's Union in Belgrade, several cultural and sanitary organizations, and the hospital Boris Kidrich. At the moment of Premier Nehru's visit to Yugoslavia, the parliament discussed economic problems. The discussion was interrupted to hear the speech of the Indian Prime Minister. All benches were full. At the appearance of the prominent guest, enthusiastic applaudissements broke out. Ovation lasted 5 minutes. Addressing to Indian Premier, the speaker, Moshe Piade, said, "I especially want to thank you for your coming here and for the opportunity that we can listen to you." Then Nehru came to the tribune. In the same hall where deputies voted for freedom, for republic, for socialism, where Tito was elected the president of the republic, came out quiet and unusual words of Hindu language. "Visit to India of your honorable president, whom we consider with pride as our friend," said Nehru, led to a new movements in both countries, led to a new mutual understanding. That is the lucky event indeed, advantages for our two countries as well as for the world in general. From the seed which then seeded grew up the tree which is prosperous and whose shades cover vast spaces. Not only members of parliament, but the citizens of Belgrade wanted to hear President Nehru. They waited for him in front of the parliament building. Nehru spoke to them. During these 2 days, I witnessed your warmth and love. I shall never forget it. You linked me to you with strong links, which can be made only by love and warmth. Round green table, two prime ministers didn't create a new bloc, the third power. They wanted to show by an example that collaboration of two countries which follow different ways to the same aim is possible. Before leaving Belgrade, President Nehru gave a reception in government building and he invited President Tito and his wife, Moša Pijade, Aleksandar Ranković, many other Yugoslav high officials and diplomatic corps. The end of his stay in Belgrade meant acquaintance of the country and peoples of Yugoslavia. Beauty of land, cultural monuments and big industrial objects hurried to meet Nehru. The blue train didn't stop very often. The speed was lowered before Zenica. Numerous chimneys cover the landscape. Zenica is the new built industrial town that is a modern iron and steel factory. It produces thousands of tons of steel, and that means modern equipped factories. Zenica is the biggest industrial center of the People's Republic Bosnia and Herzegovina. Capital of this republic is Sarajevo. There is no town in Yugoslavia where such contrasts could be found. Monuments of far and near past, traces of clashing east and west. Sarajevo was under yoke of occupation for ages. Baščaršija, around 500 years old, with its crafts and shops remains to east. It yields to a new city with 140,000 inhabitants, to a political and cultural center of Bosnia and Herzegovina. New Sarajevo, in flowers and green, met and greeted President Nehru with flags and cheers. The way from Sarajevo led to the hydroelectric system in Jablanica. Ivan Sedlo is half a way between Sarajevo and Jablanica. There, during the past war, heavy and bloodily fighting against fascist invaders was several times going on. Cars of Premier Nehru and President Tito stopped there, and two presidents seeded two little pines on that historic place in order to symbolize friendship and similarity of aims of two countries which are geographically distant but nevertheless very close. Tenacity of men and their endeavor to seize the nature and to utilize it changed quick streams of rivers to big hydroelectric systems. Jablanica is the biggest in Yugoslavia. It gives the power for many industries. It brings the light into thousands of homes. Memory is still full of impressions from hydroelectric system when eyes receive new impressions from streets of Mostar. That is a small town full of mosques, bridges, small streets and sentimental songs. But the tempo of building socialism says this town too. Building in Mostar is now more frequent and quicker. Dubrovnik, small medieval town, surrounded with thick walls, the progress is in the fact that nothing new has to be built in. The whole town, as a historic monument, is under the protection of the state. In same streets which passed Premier Nehru, in ancient time religious pageants were moving, joyful theater shows were played in the squares, and on the town wall citizens of this free town met enemies prepared to give their lives defending their rights. Today, young people dance for dear guests. These young people and this old town represent unity and harmony. On the way from Dubrovnik to Split, there were also many cheers. At the entrance to Split harbor, patrolling boats of Yugoslav Navy met the guests. contrast to Dubrovnik, Split is a very lively commercial port, headquarters of the Navy and one of centers of Yugoslav shipbuilding. But nevertheless, it is a historic monument. Many centuries ago, this town was built by the Praetorian Emperor Diocletian. Remainings of the Emperor Palace, of old temples and memorials mixed with new squares, new memorials and industry. Tourists are taking photographs beside the famous memorial of Grgurninski. Nehru was interested in memorials, but not less interest he showed for the shipyard Vitko Krstulovic, in which modern and fast ships are built. Zagreb was the next town on the way of Premier Nehru. It is the capital of the People's Republic Croatia, 1,000 years old cultural center of Croat people. It could offer to Premier Nehru its libraries. It could be proud of pure Gothics of its cathedrals. But to the friend from India, Zagreb showed its industry, the factory Rade Končar. Turbines, electromotors and many other products which previously were imported are now made in this factory. The factory Rade Končar became famous beyond Yugoslav borders. The name of the factory is taken after the name of national hero which lost his life in the last war. President Nehru put flowers under his memorial, flowers with which children of Zagreb welcomed him. President Nehru gave his regards to those men in working suits. Something later he saw them in uniforms. They marched firmly in harmonious rows. That was the parade of trained army, equipped with modern weapons, of the army whose main strength is its morale. Brioni, the summer residence of President Tito, was the last and most important place on the way through Yugoslavia. Political talks about the development of international situation of Indo-Yugoslav relations between two prime ministers continued there. The declaration, which was proclaimed at Brioni, emphasizes that talks showed equality of standpoints in all problems being discussed. Efforts of India and Yugoslavia are based on principles of peaceful and active coexistence, and they represent important help to development of international situation. India and Yugoslavia, each in her own way, develop and realize equal conceptions and principles in the international activity. This shows that principles and ideas which are mentioned in the Declaration of Two Presidents of December 1954 represent general tendencies of development of the modern world. The common resolution was stated that both sides agreed to exchange economic missions as soon as possible. These missions have to examine possibilities and have to propose concrete measures for economic cooperation. Both sides agreed to develop scientific and technical collaboration, reach cultural inheritance of both countries, give wide possibilities for cultural collaboration was emphasized in the text of the declaration. While President Tito received a party of Indian press representatives, Premier Nehru had a press conference with representatives of the Yugoslav, Indian and world press. Speaking of his impressions during his 7-day stay in Yugoslavia, he said, "I want to express my deepest thanks for welcome which I had everywhere in Yugoslavia. My impression is that here lives a vital people who build their country and with great efforts rise their standard. Yugoslavs want peace in order to achieve their purposes." Pula, the place of departure. Ancient 20th centuries old arena in which was installed cinemascope. Past and present time met there. Near the classic Colossus is the modern airport. What a similarity to India. There, at Pula airport, hands shook once again. Once more, friends waved to each other. That was the end of the visit, which is marked as a considerable contribution to peace.